Welcome, welcome, welcome to this week's live stream. What we're going to do this week is what I had promised to do the rest of the week. I'm going to hey, Rick, hey, Jesse, shout out to Stephanie, Blaine. And like I said in the chat, I'll get to your questions, Blaine, about Canadians going to the U.S. or the situation in the U.S. as far as I know it, because I'm not too dialed in. I've talked to some of my ex-coworkers and stuff like that, but I haven't gotten a lot of insight into. I don't really ask, to be honest with you. I mean, we don't talk about it. We talk about other things. But and Rick, hey, I also heard that you were recovering from your surgery and everything went great. I'm glad to hear it. So tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do, it's going to sound a little bit like a rant. I want to make sure before I start with everybody is that I'm not criticizing anybody. Well, if I criticize, it sounds like criticism. It's not criticism. I want to bring across a point, and I'm not trying to put anybody down or businesses down. What I'm going to try to do is, one of the things that I've noticed, and I always concentrate on the over-glorifying dreams of living in Mexico, living here on $500 a month, all of that stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot of fear-mongering. And as a matter of fact, I kind of did that a little bit this last time, and I apologized for it and stuff like that. But what ends up happening is, and I've been accused of it too, because I tend to say the rules and they're saying, oh, you're just a fear monger. No, the problem is that we get two sides of the spectrum, and I want to kind of explain why. And I kind of want to help you guys figure out when you need to listen and when you need to do your research, or when you need to not listen per se. And I think what's very important, what I stress all the time, is if you know where the person is coming from, you can actually make an informed decision. I'm not here to tell you what to decide, what to do, what not to do. All I am is here just to tell you how things work, okay? And there's the thing about Mexico is it's so diverse that there's maybe 100 ways to live here in Mexico. There's different ways. Not everybody lives in Mexico like I do. Not everybody lives in Mexico like maybe other people do, or the YouTubers that come out on here, which I'm going to go into. And sometimes we have this expectation because you see me maybe or I talk about having, I don't know, I don't have one, but let's say I was talking about, oh yeah, I own a Lamborghini and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden there's this image that if you come here to move to Mexico, you're going to own a Lamborghini because it's so cheap or whatever it might be. But the problem is and actually I was looking at a special the other night. The thing that I always used to say, and it kind of, they talked about it, but when we have expectations, I always make a comment that expectations a lot of times leads to disappointment. And that disappointment is what kills people in actually surviving here in Mexico. That's why a lot of people end up going back, because they have these expectations based on the over-glorifying dreams of coming here. And at the same time, hey, Laura, great to see you back here in the room again. And at the same time, I've seen a couple of Facebook posts, YouTube posts. As a matter of fact, one YouTube post was like, Mexico's closing off the United States. Donald Trump is closing off the United States. And it was like this big thing, like all of a sudden you're not going to be able to travel to the United States. And the thing about it is that the issue at hand was actually an issue that was happening before Donald Trump ever got into office. And I'm going to explain that. I'm going to use these examples. I'm going to use examples of the over-glorifying and how it may not fit you, or this fear-mongering. Or, for example, I posted, I'll give another example in the Facebook group. I live in San Miguel de Allende. I have to fly into Querétaro. I need to go back to the United States for some personal business. Okay, I do know for a fact that customs started getting strict on iPads. By basically, you can only bring in one computing device, right? A portable computing device, and 3 telephones, I think it is. And it used to be that they used to count an iPad as a telephone, okay? And now at some airports, they're counting an iPad as a portable computing device. And some people are getting charged fines for not declaring it. They're getting charged taxes on their laptops. But at the same time, other airports, they'll let you bring in 2 laptops. If one's for work and one's for your regular personal. The one airport that started it all, Cancun, started saying, "Oh well, we're not going to enforce it anymore. We're gonna let iPads through." So there's been a lot of confusion. So I posted, because I've been through the Querétaro airport, but I've never been carrying both my laptop and my iPad, and I've never been stopped. Okay, I mean, I've never been checked. They've never asked me, "How's it going?" Let me see who just popped in. Oh, Cindy, how's it going? And I've never been asked. I've never been stopped. But I have a concern that, hey, I'm going to try to take my laptop and my iPad. So I posted in the Querétaro Facebook group. And I said, hey, anybody know the regulations on iPads here in Querétaro? Because I haven't flown through Querétaro or I haven't experienced this. Can we bring my iPad? Well, I got everything from, no problem, I never get checked. Well, I've never gotten checked neither, but all I'm worried about is if I do, right? I'm just trying to find out. I want to make an informed decision. Maybe I might take my iPad. Maybe I might not. Maybe somebody's experienced that they brought their iPad through and they were charged taxes. Then I got everything from that to, don't bring it in. They check everybody. They check everything. And I take it from me. I have a Mexican family and my Mexican family gets harassed every time coming in, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it was almost like saying that the customs was the Gestapo here in Querétaro. I've been through the Querétaro airport and customs they pick people at random to check. So here's where I get everything from. And when I talk about over-glorifying dreams, I'm not only talking about this. You can live here in Mexico in paradise for $500 a month. That's what we associate the over-glorifying dreams. But sometimes what I mean by over-glorifying dreams is that, oh, not a problem. I've come through with 10 computers. Well, maybe you didn't get stopped. Maybe you didn't get... Because you came through with 10 computers does not mean that 10 computers are allowed to be brought in. It just means you got away with it, if you know what I mean. And just because someone lives here on $500 a month, and I'm using $500 a month, it's not, you need a little bit more, a lot more. But just because one person lives here on $500 a month does not mean everybody can live here. Your lifestyle, everybody's lifestyle is going to fit $500 a month. Okay. So what I want to stress here is we need to kind of evaluate our own expectations. And what I mean by expectations is our own ways of living. And we need to take what we see, and we need to take different sources, and then we need to move on from there to see if Mexico's going to fit what I want to, or if I'm going to need to make sacrifices, know that you're going to need to make those sacrifices. I give a perfect example. I'll give you an example. And I use this person as an example a lot. Hold on just one second. Let me just, one second. He's a YouTuber out of Merida that basically tells everybody that Mexico has no rules. Lately, I don't know if everybody knows, and I'm going to go over this in one of the next live streams. But Mexico is going to an electronic corp. Everybody has a corp number, somewhat but biometric corp. Basically, they're going to start issuing a card. Actually, they've started doing it, I think, in Mexico City. But a law has been passed in Mexico that the official ID for both residents and Mexican citizens, but we don't know how it's going to work for residents yet. You have to go in, have your biometrics taken, and they give you a driver's license. If you know anything about Mexico, your ID, usually Mexicans use what they call an INE, I-N-E. The INE is a voter ID, okay? And if you go to do any business in Mexico and you're a Mexican citizen, it's like, let me see your INE. Your INE is like for everything. I mean, for everything from applying for credit, even opening up a bank account and everything else. Now, if you're a resident, you use your resident card. And actually, there's a number on the back of your resident card that they actually put in place of the INE. What Mexico's trying to do is standardize the ID, and they're also doing it with biometrics. And I know that this is a hot topic with everybody. And they are going to start requiring the INE. I mean, not the INE, the electronic corp instead of the INE. The INE is nothing more than a voter ID. It's for people to vote. So what if I don't vote? I mean, people still get it, so that because they can't really function here in Mexico without it. But what Mexico has done is they've passed some new laws. Now, for whatever reason they passed the new laws, for efficiency, for, I don't know, control over being able to identify people. This is nothing new in any other country. You go to in the United States, they passed it a while back, but they just started implementing this real ID. You can't get on an airplane unless you have your real ID. And the states had to be real ID compliant by last year. And now you can't even get on without a passport or real ID, that type of thing. Hey, Tom, how's it going? And so basically, Mexico's kind of doing the same thing, but it's just kind of like they're going to use your corp number. Your corp number, actually, you have a corp. Your corp is actually on your residency card, okay? The corp is a national registry number. In the United States, I don't know how they do it in Canada, Blaine. You might want to explain it because I don't know how they do it in Canada. But in the United States, you have a Social Security number. So there's Social Security numbers used for credit, used as an ID number, used as whatever type of number. And then it's also used as a tax ID number. Here in Mexico, you have 3 numbers. You're registering, and actually they're going to start doing this from when a baby is born. They issue a corp. The corp is a national registry number. Then you have an RFC, which is your tax ID number. Then people have their INE. And the way it's been explained to the Mexican people is that we're trying to standardize everything so you don't have you're going to still have 3 numbers, but you're going to have everything connected to one ID. So this YouTuber comes out and tries to explain to everybody, because he's a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not, like I said, I don't want to. This is his business, but he believes that the government's going to track everybody, and he's telling everybody, don't worry. And here's the thing about the electronic corp. Hey, Gringisimo. The electronic corp at this time is not required, okay? So it's optional right now, okay? So what he's saying is, most Mexicans, they're not going to get it. They're not going to do it. You're good. Come on down. You don't need one. You don't need to have your biometrics taken. Well, but here's the problem. First of all, if you get residency here in Mexico, and he's also someone there that advocates living here illegally, at one point, and also doing border runs and all sorts of other stuff. But the thing you need to understand is when he talks about, first of all, if you're a resident, like I said, they take your biometrics already. Okay, so The government has your biometric information just by the fact that you applied for residency and have a resident card. Okay. This is nothing new. If someone says, come go get an electronic corp or ID, or actually, instead of having to this is going to prevent you from losing your resident card, because you can go get your electronic corp and use that in place of your residence card because you have an official Mexican ID. It'll be accepted everywhere, supposedly. This is the plan. Okay. So it kind of even helps. I'm not, but here's the thing. He's sitting there telling you that, oh, don't worry, most Mexicans don't have it. Well, the Mexicans that he's talking about that don't have even an INE, some Mexicans don't even have an INE, are people from the poor population here that don't have the recourses to buy a car or maybe rent an apartment, or because a lot of people that are in the lower level incomes are given ejido land, are given land. So even then, they still kind of need an INE. And these people, they live in towns that are self-sufficient. They don't need a bank account. You'll see that a lot of people here in Mexico, if you hire local help, a lot of people here in Mexico don't even have a bank account, so you can't do a bank transfer. Everything's done in cash. So when he's talking to you about most Mexicans, he's talking about most Mexicans he deals with. Okay. He lives in a very lower class neighborhood of meager means, and he deals with different types of Mexicans. Now, am I saying that's bad? No. He's the happiest guy in the world. Actually, I've never seen the guy not smile. I think he's so happy to be in Mérida, Mexico. But his deal is that he wants to tell you what you want to hear. Okay. But here's the problem, okay, with the fallacy of that is, and I'm going to give more examples. I'm not just giving out on this one person. But here's the problem with that. You come over here with a different lifestyle. Maybe you have the means to get residency. You have the means to rent an apartment. You have the means to buy a car. You have the means to have a bank account. And you want the same life you have back home. And actually, some people that don't have them, most people that don't have the means back home in the United States have bank accounts. Everybody has a debit card nowadays. I mean, still, even then, and actually everything's direct deposited. Even welfare is direct deposited into people's bank accounts. And so even if you come with little means and you come and think, okay, I'm going to open up a bank account, and you go over there and you don't have your electronic corp, you don't have an RFC, you don't, okay, Blaine was saying Canada is a 9-digit, but works exactly like the U.S. Social Security number. Okay. The point I wanted to make is that Canada, I guess, has the same system where one number for everything. And so that frustrates. So what happens is these Americans and Canadians and Europeans come over here because this guy said, I don't need an RFC. This guy says, I don't need a bank account. This guy says, I don't need any of this stuff. And what happens? You go to the bank and you can't get a bank account because you don't have your biometric ID. Now, here's the thing. If you live like him and you don't care to have, you want to do everything in cash, and you hustle on YouTube and you get paid in US dollars or whatever it might be, and you don't need a bank account, you don't need a car, you don't need certain things. And he's also married to a Mexican woman, so that he could get things if he doesn't have the documentation his wife does. So, and I'm in the same situation. So then you come here and if you want to come here and live, you just need to understand where he's coming from, how he lives, where he's saying that you don't need these things. Okay. Not that you don't need them, because you know what? You could live here like that. But your style of living and your level of living is going to be different. Okay? And so that is an example, and the same thing. The same individual says, oh, you don't need, there's no financial requirements. All you have to do is show you're retired. You automatically get, and I have a lawyer. He's got a lawyer that comes out and says this in front of everybody. And everybody, oh, well, a lawyer said it. I think Tangerine Travel is like, well, a lawyer said it, so it must be true. But it's not true. You can't just go to the I&M office, show them your Social Security check, and get your permanent residency. And the argument here with his lawyer and everybody else is that the law, in immigration law, states that if you're retired, in order to qualify for permanent residency, is that you have to be retired of retirement age and show a livable income. That's the way the law is written. But livable income is determined by SRE, which you start at a consulate outside the United States. And guess who determines the livable income? Those are what we call financial solvency requirements. So is the lawyer lying? Is the YouTuber lying? No, they're quoting the law, but at the same time, they're bending or fitting the language to fit their narrative. Okay? So people will say, well, what's so wrong about that? Well, you know what's so wrong about that? What if I, on Social Security, sell all my stuff, move down to Mexico, and I move down to Mexico, I show up to the I&M office after I've sold everything, I've moved everything, and I say, here's my Social Security check, here's my proof that I'm retired, now give me permanent residency. And first of all, I&M's going to tell you, you need to leave the country and you need to go, there's no regularization program. You need to go back to your home country and you need to apply. That's what they're going to say. They're not going to say you don't qualify. And then you say, oh, shoot, I spent all my money moving down here. Now what do? Now I have to go back to my home country, go to the consulate, and then you go to the consulate, you pay for a $500 ticket to go back home, back to your home country. You go to the consulate and the consulate goes, you don't meet the financial solvency requirement. What did that YouTuber just do? He ruined that person's life because that person sold everything to come to Mexico, and he believes something that somebody said because a lawyer said it. And then what happens? Now I'm out of luck. Do you think the YouTuber has to worry about it? No. He got your views and maybe even got your money for consulting. So you need to be careful. In this over-glorifying, he's also one of the ones that everybody uses as an example, that he came over here with $500 in his pocket. And a lot of people don't know his whole true story, which I'm not going to go into. But it's glorified like you can come here with $500 in your pocket and nothing. And then you know what his advice is whenever you get screwed like that? His advice is, well, just live here then nobody's going to do nothing. There's no rules here. Okay. And then he talks about businesses in Merida, how, oh yeah, everybody runs a taco stand, everybody does it in cash, nobody gets permits, they'll just move somewhere. Yeah, exactly. That's Mexican people that are doing that. If you do that with a temporary resident permit and you don't have permission to work, they send you back home. They take away your temporary residency. That's the difference. Just because some Mexicans can do that doesn't mean that you can. Okay? But at the same time, if you want to take the risk and you want to run a taco stand, and maybe you might not get caught, but at least you know, okay? Now, the same thing, we see all these videos about living here, rent $500 a month. I found rent for $500. I found this great place on the beach for $400 a month. you need to understand that that person, okay, that person may be living in that apartment for $400 a month. I'm not going to say no. It's not a lie. But at the same time, that person might have find a heck of a deal. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it belonged to a family, their parent that belonged to somebody's mom or dad, and they passed away and they just need to rent it, and we're just going to take the first $400 that someone offers. That's great. But that doesn't mean every apartment in that place is going to be $400 a month. Okay? And here's the problem. A lot of relocation services, a lot of expat services, they publish these people as examples of how easy it is to move to Mexico. But the problem is when you get here and you don't find that $400 apartment a month, then you get disappointed because now I budgeted $400 and now it's $1,000. That's why you still need to do your research. There's a guy out of Puerto Vallarta. He helps people get driver's license and license plates. That guy's posting all the time, breaking news this, breaking news that. And it's not breaking news. It's something, the last one was breaking news. Your driver's license in, Nayarit and Puerto Vallarta only lasts as long as your residency. Well, it only makes sense, right? And it's been going on for a while. It's not breaking news. But the guy posts these things because he wants you to think he's the only one that knows anything. I'm the expert. That's the problem with all of these YouTube channels that try to promote, especially the ones that are trying to sell you something, trying to sell you services, trying to sell you, I'll find you an apartment, trying to sell you services. And as a matter of fact, I actually sent somebody to that person in Puerto Vallarta because I knew he did the service. And when I found out how much he charged, I didn't even know. I thought, oh no, I know a guy. He's in Puerto Vallarta. He's on Facebook. Here's his information. And I felt embarrassed because I recommended him because I knew he did. It was nationalizing a car. And someone says, yeah, he wants like $5,000. And I don't remember how much it was, but it was an outrageous amount of money. Why? Because I'm the one that knows how to do it. And that's why I can charge you $5,000. What we need to understand, my wife has a master's in marketing, and she always tells me this, if you can hold on just one second. Marketing is everywhere. Marketing is in politics. Marketing is in selling you a product. Marketing is in selling you a YouTube channel. Even marketing is part of what I do. Sometimes the real truth about moving to Mexico, it's about marketing. And there's nothing wrong with marketing, okay? As a matter of fact, it's really funny because even one of the people that I recommend and I've even used personally here in San Miguel de Allende for expat services is the best in all of Mexico. But when people get upset and they say, well, she thinks she's it and I don't know and this and that. And I go, well, you know what? She's very good at marketing herself. That's what I say. I don't say, no, she's a piece of junk because she doesn't know what she's talking about, or there's more other people that are cheaper, or there's other people that do the same stuff. I don't say that. No. I say that she's very good at marketing herself, and it's very true. Okay. Now, do I say don't go to her because she's very good at marketing herself? No. I happen to know that she's the best at what she does because I've looked into her. I've went over her websites. I've looked at the information. Mexico relocation guide, same thing. I've actually seen the relocation guide. I actually had access to it for a while. Actually, I don't have access to it anymore because they kept changing the system and I didn't want to keep asking Mariana for the password or to keep giving me a free account. I already know what's in there. Okay, so that's why I recommend it. That's why I say, okay, if Mariana does a a video about a little town and someone living on $400 a month. She vets, but she still has to market. Okay. That's just business. That's just life. So when you understand that, then you understand where people are coming from. And then you can evaluate the information more with a more neutral and a better informed, to make a better informed decision. I'll give you an example, and I don't get into politics, but one thing I noticed about the United States is, the left, they're responsible for everything. The left did this, the Democrats and Obama, he ruined our country. Okay, if you listen to Fox News, that's what you hear every day. And how great Trump is and everything. Then you turn over to CNN, okay? Trump, he's a joke. He's this. He's trying to take away your rights, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying any of that is not true. But both networks are twisting the news to fit their narrative, okay? I grew up in a time where the news actually reported the news, not gave an opinion. Right now, the news is nothing more than an opinion article. It's nothing more than the National Enquirer, no matter what network you listen to. Because I heard it on CNN doesn't mean it's true, or because I heard it on Fox doesn't mean it's true. I'm not saying that it's not true, but what I'm trying to say is that if I want to know what's going on, I try to look at both sides, and I try to look at both sides in the news. And actually, I even look at both sides and both sides are freaking crazy. I'm going to go look for the truth, because probably half the stuff this side is saying and half the stuff this side is saying is probably nothing but malarkey. So what we need to do, and I use this, is that we need to look at not just one side of the story, but all sides of the story. We need to look at, okay, I'm kind of like, for example, my experiences, when I give you what I do, this is how I do it. Okay. Well, maybe you don't have the same lifestyle that I do. Okay. So you need to figure out that, okay, maybe Ernie's method is not going to work for me, but at least I know what Ernie does. At least I know how he uses his cell phone service. I'm not going to do the same thing because I don't think I'm not in the same situation he is. All I need is a Mexican phone. I don't need two phones. Or I don't need two lines, or I don't need an iPhone, that's fine. And that's where you need to make your decisions. Now, on the fear-mongering part, like I said, I see it more on Facebook than I saw I saw this one thing on YouTube. All this lady was doing on YouTube was voicing a political opinion because she hates the current administration. Was what she was saying true? Yes. But I'm going to explain what happened. And then you'll get a better perspective on what's going on. The United States basically reduced flights from the amount of flights that could fly into the United States. Okay. And she made it sound like they're going to cut off all flights to the United States. Not only that, but I think I want to say it's Delta Airlines has a partnership with Aeromexico, and the United States was going to cancel that partnership. But let me tell you what happened. Okay. And this happened way before Trump. Okay. Mexico built a brand new airport outside of Mexico City. That was the last president's one of his biggest projects. He actually even used the military to build. It was an old military base. He built this beautiful international airport outside of Mexico City. What he didn't do is build better highways to get out there and infrastructure to support that airport. So what happened? No airlines, hardly any airlines were flying into this beautiful, brand new, humongous airport. They were still using the old airport. So what did Mexico do? We need to use this airport, right? We need to get use out of it. So Mexico diverted all cargo shipments to the new airport. So basically they told the United States, if you have a cargo shipment, you have to fly it to the new airport. You can't come into the regular international airport, the old one. Well, what has that done for U.S. companies? U.S. companies, number one, can't get their trucks out there to get they can, but the traffic is so bad because there's so many trucks going out there to get cargo. It's an hour outside of Mexico City, so companies like UPS and DHL can't get you your packages real fast. So the U.S. companies started complaining. Biden and everybody else started threatening the United States. The United States started threatening Mexico a long time ago. If you don't let us fly our cargo into Mexico, into the regular international airport, we're going to do this. Okay? What Trump did is just a continuation of what the Biden administration was already doing. So now you know the truth. Was it Trump cutting off Mexico because of all the illegal aliens and I don't know what all, and because he hates Mexico? No, it wasn't. It was something that has been going on for before this during the previous Mexican president's administration. So now you know the truth. So now, does it sound like the United States is cutting Mexico off? No, they're not. They're basically saying, unless you do and it's all part of a negotiation probably to try to get them their way. Okay? So that's where we need to, but see, here's the problem. This YouTuber was using this example as a way to punch at the administration in the United States. First of all, you no longer live in the United States, lady. Second of all, you need to understand what happened or where this whole thing came from before you start saying that Trump is going to shut down the borders to the point where you can't even go home. That is ridiculous. And not only that, but are you going to be harder to get back home maybe because the flights are going to reduce? And this deal with Delta and Aeromexico, you got to remember in the United States, when you have a partnership like that, it has to be approved by the SEC or whatever. It has to be approved by the regulatory people. And so that is a way of saying, hey, if you don't do this, we won't do this. And it's been going on. It's a fight that's been going on for years. So that's where you have to say, just like I said about Querétaro. And as a matter of fact, it's funny because this guy says, my Mexican family, and I'm married to a Mexican. And I'm like, I'm married to a Mexican too. And I'll tell you what, I do know that Mexican customs is a lot stricter on Mexican nationals when they're coming in, because a lot of Mexican nationals go to the United States to buy stuff to sell it over here. So usually they're a lot stricter on Mexican nationals. So just because your Mexican family has been stopped every single time at the Querétaro airport does not mean that everybody gets stopped at the Querétaro airport. And it doesn't mean that every Mexican gets stopped at the Querétaro airport. So if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say is you need to look at your expectations of living here. And there's all sorts of people that come here to Mexico to live. If you're, where did I hear that about the airport? Steve, I actually read it in the Mexican news. I know that that's actually what happened because I actually have been following it since it happened a long time ago. There's been a problem with that new airport a long time ago, and I didn't hear it on CNN. I didn't hear it on all I saw on U.S. News, to be honest with you. Just kidding. I know you were just kidding, but that's exactly the point I'm trying to make. I saw the news article where I actually saw, I don't know CNN, I don't know which I read. I don't really watch either one of the news networks. I just watch, I guess my Apple News, I guess it is. And I don't know, sometimes it's CNN, sometimes it's Fox, sometimes it's, But I saw the article where they cut it off, and I'm like, And actually, it was a big news item because the president of Mexico said, we don't care what you say. We're not going to bend, blah, blah, blah. And there was a lot of news articles on this side. I actually read the news articles on this side also. And there was a different perspective from the U.S. news articles than there was from the Mexican news articles. And I was aware of this a long time ago, but it wasn't there was threats being made, but it was, I guess, Mexico's if you want to know the whole story, they started letting some cargo come in, certain things could land at that airport. There were concessions being made. The difference with this administration is they basically said, you don't want to play just like they do with the tariffs. Unless you do what we say, we're going to put tariffs on you. Okay, that's just the difference. This is difference in politics. So what we need to do is, like I said, there's all sorts of people that move here. Everything from, like I said, you're on maybe you can't afford to live in the United States and you want to come here, but you can't afford to make the financial solvency requirement. So someone tells you, don't worry, run to the border every 180 days. Or someone tells you, don't worry, just come here and live here. No one cares. Mexico doesn't care. You can live here illegally. Okay, I'm not telling you to do this, and I'm not telling you it's okay, but I'm telling you, if you're going to do it, know the consequences. If you jump on a bus one day and immigration boards the bus and you don't have any paperwork, you're going to end up in detention for months, sometimes up to 6-8 months. There's people that have been detained up to 8 months. And for whatever reason, they detain you as long as it takes to return you. But there's been people that have been detained for and trust me, a Mexican immigration facility is the last place you want to do that. You want to be in, trust me. And I've actually visited some, okay? Me personally visited some. So I can tell you, you don't want to be there. And just know that that's a risk you're going to take. When I talked about, the one thing that I always tell you about the vehicles, and I'm telling you the law versus the reality. And like I said, just know if they take away your car, I can't complain. And the free zone, yes, Steve, the free zone, you can get away with a lot of stuff. And so that's where I think we need to kind of change our thinking of not how can we get around the rules. Let me know the rules. Let me know my options and what risks am I willing to take. Am I willing to go every 180 days to the border and one day get told that I can't come back? Then I have to have a plan B. What if I get told I can't come back? I'm not going to leave all my stuff behind, or if I leave my stuff behind, how am I going to get it back? How am I going to get, all of those things are things that you need to think about. I used to be a staunch, oh no, if you do this is illegal. It is illegal, by the way. But I'm just saying, I used to be this staunch, you need to follow the rules. Yes, I believe you need to follow the rules. But I also believe that a lot of people aren't going to listen to me. So if you're not going to follow the rules and you're not going to listen to me, then just know what you're facing, if that makes any sense. And just make a decision that's best for you. That's what it's all about. And, but just take all the information you get on the internet with a grain of salt. I can tell you right now, I'm not an expert. Sometimes I get things wrong. As a matter of fact, my last live stream, or one of my last one was where I got something wrong and I had to correct it. And also remember, I can give you advice on how I do things or what I know about the rules, but it's always up to you to figure out what fits your personal situation. That's what's most important. If, like I said, if you're, I don't know, happen to be someone that, there's plenty of people, like I said, there's plenty of people that come here, live amongst the people, want to live like a Mexican, live in a small neighborhood, or even go into an ejido with the Mexican community. And yeah, you don't need an electronic corp because you're not going to go to the bank. You're going to be farming on the ejido with the Mexican people. Okay. So that's the difference. But at the same time, the problem that we have is, and the thing is you got to remember the fear-mongering for YouTube. The fear-mongering is live here, not the fear-mongering. The over-glorification is live here in Mexico for less than $1,000 a month. That's to get views. And when I see those videos, they got 60K views, 50K views, 40, and it's a YouTube channel that has like 1,000 subscribers. Why? Because people click on it because they want to hear how you can live in Mexico for $1,000 a month. Same thing with fear-mongering. It's over. U.S. citizens will no longer be allowed in Mexico. I haven't seen a video yet, but I'm waiting for that. What's going to happen? 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people are going to click on that video, and it's going to make that person money. Okay? I do it to market, but I do it a little bit more to catch your attention. And then I tell you, hey, this is the way it is. And I do it just like everybody else. It's marketing. Okay? But we all have different reasons why we're marketing the way we are. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind. I just been seeing a lot of, and especially with the political situation going on, and I'm going to get to Blaine, I'm going to get to your question. And it's just with the political situation going on, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of exaggeration, okay? And I'm not defending the current U.S. administration, or I'm not defending the country of Mexico. But what I am here to say is, look, if things get to that point, or whatever you might want to say is going to get to, then let it get to that point before you start freaking out and saying that it's going to be that way. You know, now, if it's in the process of getting to that point, do what you need to do to protect yourself and be prepared. There's nothing wrong with being prepared, but there is something wrong with being stressed out every day because a political situation or a situation looks like it's not going to fit your thing. And if you're thinking about moving to Mexico, especially for political reasons, then you know what? You need to understand how things work down here. I do know that a lot of people do move here, and actually, I can see it happening. I'm going to tell you right now. I can see maybe even immigration opening up if it gets really bad to political asylum. Because basically political asylum in the immigration system is when you are afraid of retribution, of political retribution, because of your political thoughts or your ideologies. And that would fit political asylum if it gets that bad. So I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but I can see it happening. But right now at this point, there is no political asylum. That's my point. So let's get into this question. Blaine had some questions here. If you can hold on, just let me get some water here. I'm going to go ahead and leave this as it is. I think I made my point, and I talked for an hour. I talked too much. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start taking questions like I always do at the end of my lives. Let me see what Blaine had some questions about, and I do know that there's been a lot of news reports going around that even U.S. citizens getting detained all sorts of stuff with ICE. So that the U.S. Okay, Blaine, is there any truth to claim that the U.S. is surrounding Mexico without its government consent, something that would amount to an act of aggression? Actually, Blaine, I will tell you right now, Sandra and Blanca, welcome. What I will tell you right now, there's a lot of political talk because the United States has said that they want to go in because of the fentanyl crisis and invade Mexico. The Mexican president has made it very clear that if you come in, you are not welcome. Now, you're welcome to cooperate with us, do joint operations. It's been happening for years. We worked with them. I worked with the Mexican government when I was working, and that's why I get a lot of my contacts or my knowledge of the Mexican government. And so she said, if we work together, not a problem. If you come in and you do all these covert operations or whatever it might say, then you are actually breaking our sovereignty. There's been a lot of tension going on between the both countries. I do know that Mexico has handed over the last, I don't know how many narcos they've handed over. Mexico has tried to, I'm not saying that, we can get into this corruption thing or non-corruption thing, but Mexico has tried to kind of appease the United States, in my opinion, by saying, okay, you want fentanyl? Here's all these people that we're going to be extraditing. Actually, one of the people they just extradited, I think he's a Russian that came here in 2017. He was a chemist, and probably they claim he's responsible for probably 90% of fentanyl that was produced here in Mexico at one point in time. Now, is that still true? Probably not, because people probably learned how to make fentanyl. But and not only that, but one of the things that you'll see is a lot of tough talk about the tariffs. Well, what's been happening is it's been being postponed. So right now, I do know that some aircraft carriers at one point were stationed out in international waters outside of Mexico, but nothing's really developed out of it, Blaine. I think we'll just have to look at the situation to see if it's, does the United States do covert operations all over the world? Yes, they do. And they're called covert operations because they're covert. If Mexico discovers that they're doing one here, then they may have a problem. The United States might end up in a problem. If they do one, we'll never know about it. I'm not saying that they do it here in Mexico, but when they're talking about all of this stuff on the news, they're talking, I think the U.S. military is talking about doing covert. And then there's been some talk about overt. But this is where the news has kind of gotten it out of whack. And I think it's been a little bit, you need to understand that I don't know this administration, because every day I wake up and there's something new, and you don't know what's true and what's not anymore. And I think I have taken the position that we'll have to see. We'll have to see if there is any aggression, how Mexico handles it. One of the things that I can tell you about Mexico and the current administration in the United States, one thing that I have noticed personally, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but Trump talks bad about Canada, talks bad about all the leaders, okay? And maybe some people say he doesn't talk bad about Putin, but that's beside the point. But you know one person that he doesn't talk bad about is the Mexican president. As a matter of fact, in several news conferences or news interviews, he actually says he respects her a lot. And you won't see him. And he's also someone that's very, I'm not going to, like I said, I don't discuss politics, but he's the kind that'll be like, she's just a stupid woman and blah, 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 blah. You have never heard him say that about the Mexican president. And that says a lot. for Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not defending Donald Trump, but for him not to be attacking, he attacks Mexico like, yeah, we need to send all the immigrants back. And yeah, they send us all their fentanyl. They send us all their criminal. But if you notice, he doesn't attack. And he's very, very apprehensive about doing personal attacks on the Mexican president. Yeah, he's probably said some bad things. I mean, somebody could probably bring up, yeah, he said this, he said that. But what I'm trying to tell you is compared to other world leaders, the Mexican president is one of the few presidents that he actually has some respect for. So that says a lot. So is it going to happen? I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see. And then you're hearing reports that more Canadians will be placed in custody until Canada agrees to become the 51st state. Many advise avoiding the U.S. until things improve. You know what, Blaine? I don't think that Canada's ever going to become the 51st state. I think that started as a political. I think when Canada was fighting and we're not going to listen to you and everything else, Trump made some comments, and I think Congress has really taken off on that. There's a lot of crazy people in power right now. And it's not just the president of the United States, if you want to call him crazy, but I'm just saying there's a lot of crazy things going on and crazy ideas. Here's the thing that I'll tell you right now. There's still international law. There's still, if they were to try, and I don't know who, actually, I was listening to this not too long ago. Someone made a comment that Canada, we're going to make them to the 50, and we're going to have a peaceful invasion because they want us there. I don't know which politician was saying that. I don't know. I think I saw a YouTube video. I don't even remember who it was because I didn't even pay attention to it. I don't think that's it. They're not going to invade Canada. Now, here's the thing. I don't know, Blaine. I do know maybe Canadians are telling you to many are advising don't go and avoid the United States. Right now, I still think unless the Canadian government gives you a warning like, hey, we're really in trouble with the United States. Now, here's the thing. If you want to avoid, and I think a lot of the avoiding thing has been, you know what, don't spend money in the United States. We need to show them on the part of Canada. And so I think, are things volatile in the United States and you don't want any problems, then yeah, best solution is not to go. I mean, if I'm Hispanic, I'm almost sure that if I lived there and I went to certain parts of the United States, I'd be basically pulled over for driving while Mexican. Okay. I'm not full Mexican, but I'm brown. So, am I going to avoid the United States because I'm going to get pulled over? No, not really, because I know the way the system works. Probably the first thing that's going to be out of my mouth is, dude, I'm retired. I know how you guys work, the whole 9 yards. Am I going to be inconvenienced? Probably. Now, if I hear reports that they're just detaining anybody who's brown and putting them in a concentration camp or whatever just because of the color of your skin, and it's true and I can confirm it, then I'm not going to go back to the United States. So I think that's where you need to make the decision. Now, and here's the other thing about the Canadians being placed in custody, is that the problem right now is one day, and here's the problem that I see. One day we're going to give tariffs. One day, the next day, no tariffs. Then the next day, 50%, 100% tariffs. The next day, 90-day extension. So, yeah, you could get caught up in that. Tomorrow, detain all Canadians. I don't know. Maybe it's true. I don't see it happening. But, we'll see what happens. Question was, is it safe to travel while a white Canadian Nexus member? no criminal or other record report. Yeah, here's the thing with probably Canadians being detained. The problem, Blaine, that you have is Canada is in close proximity to the United States. And a lot of the people that are being detained I'm not saying that it's justifiable detention, but maybe there's been a lot of free travel back and forth. People that even on the northern border live in the United States or live in Canada, and they're Americans and they come back and forth. And I think what's been targeted, to be honest with you, has been those individuals that have been living there, and they say, "Oh, well, you don't have any legal status here. You shouldn't be living here, even though we let you live here forever and a day." And I do think that ICE is under a lot of pressure right now to grab as many people as possible. So I'm not doubting that 155 Canadians and 2 children have been detained. What their situation is, I don't know. Can I see them doing this? Yeah, because they're being pressured to do it. But I think there's also individual cases, probably not solid ones, probably not legal detentions. But in your case, since you're traveling through, going back to Canada, or even stopping to stay there for a little while and then go on to Canada, I don't think you're going to have a problem, Blaine. You have for Disney World, but I'm considering canceling to avoid problem. Well, actually, Blaine, you know what? To be honest with you, things are very volatile. I can't tell you whether, like I said, what happens today may not happen tomorrow in the United States. And I do know that where you will have problems, Blaine, more than likely, and I'll tell you, if you do have problems, it's going to be getting in, not being at Disney World. You'll probably get what CBP does a lot of times. They lift visas. You know what? You don't. We think you're going to live here. Take the visa away, because visas are very easy to lift in the United States. So if you do have any issues, you're going to probably have more issues going into entering the United States than you are going to have if you're actually at Disney World. But at the same time, I know you don't want to overreact to media reports, but media reports, although, like I say, they might not be accurate because they're both from both sides. We're talking about the fear-mongering thing here. But at the same time, I will comment that things are so unpredictable right now that I don't know what to tell you. The safest thing would be to cancel your plans. But at the same time, I don't think you'll have any issues. I've gone back to the United States several times. Actually, I've gone through customs thinking, I'm going to get, actually the last time I went through customs, I thought, okay, here goes. Mexican plates, U.S. citizen passport. They're going to ask me all sorts of questions. And I got to the border and I started talking to the lady. I didn't even mention what I used to do. And she's like, where do you live? Oh, San Miguel de Allende. And she wanted to talk to me for the next 15 minutes about how great San Miguel de Allende was and how do I like it and what do I think. And I was like, well, I'm waiting for you to stop me. So I don't, like I said, it's so unpredictable right now. Is talk of the U.S. exaggerated? Aren't U.S. agencies like the CIA or special forces already operating? Okay, I will tell you the CIA they operate all over the world. Not only that, my agency had offices in Mexico City. We've worked operations in conjunction with the Mexican government. This is nothing new. And right now, to be honest with you, I think military invasion is a empty threat. But I think it's going to be dependent on what we see in the United States, because there's a lot of challenges to laws of sending National Guard, and lately the takeover of DC. The problem with this administration is they're trying to push the envelope as far as they can. But what I've also seen is they kind of step back when they can't push the envelope. So they kind of pulled one of these, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do it anyway. And then when they start getting in trouble, real bad trouble, it's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's better to apologize later. It's kind of like this attitude of, let's break the law, let's break the rules, let's do whatever the hell we want to do. It's better to say sorry later than not to do it at all. And so we'll have to see how much leeway the Supreme Court gives them and everything else. But I think it's exaggerated at this point in time. It's a lot of empty thoughts. Oh, wow, Blaine, thanks for the donation. I appreciate it. So hopefully that helps ease your mind a little bit. The problem with giving you a real good answer, Blaine, is that things are so unpredictable. Like I said, from one day it's a tariff, the next day no tariffs, the next day is 300% tariffs, and I think and someone made this comment, but I always used to say, you know what, it's a tactic of bullying, of trying to say you better do things the way we say we're going to do them, or we're going to do all of this stuff. One of the things with a bully, though, is when you stand up to the bully doesn't know what to do. And that is what I have been seeing in the U.S. A lot of countries have basically said, okay, put the tariffs. We'll put our tariffs. Oh, okay, put the tariffs. We'll find other trade routes. But at the same time, the bully has to maintain the bully, because I got to keep saying that I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Well, it's not working in a lot of cases. I mean, I think someone said we're going to have 90 deals in 90 days. And I don't think they've even announced one or two. I don't really follow the news. So, this is a show. And you also got to remember, part of this is a show. I hate to say it, but it is. It's a show to please the American people, and their attitudes or whatever it's a sad situation, but it's so unpredictable, because even a bully is very unpredictable. You don't know when the bully's going to do what the bully says he's going to do. Most of the time the bully backs down, but not all the time. Off subject question. No, nothing is, that I asked me anything Mexico. Just got back from Ajijic, just getting over being sick. Do you know what the food rules are in Mexico to keep from getting foodborne illness? Jesse, there's two things you can do here in Mexico. We do it once a year. Hold on just 1 second. There's an anti-parasite medication that you take once a year, or you can take it up to every 6 months. You just go to the doctor and tell them you want for parasites. I forgot the name of the medication. I can get the name of the medication that we take. Dococil, I think. Docil. I forgot. I want to say that that's the name of the medication, but we take it. There's a big horse pill you take once a year. And it helps to fight your body to fight parasites. The other thing that I also advise, one thing about getting sick in Mexico, we've talked about this a lot because we have people that come and we take them to the market. We eat market food and everything else, but you got to remember, we don't eat at any place. But we also, our stomachs have gotten the bacteria of the local food. Some people that'll eat the same things as we eat will get sick because their bacteria in their stomach, they're not from here. They have a different bacteria. They call it E. coli or whatever. You have a different E. coli. So the best thing to do is if you're going to start eating local food, a lot of local foods, is to start eating little by little and get used to it. Once your system gets used to it. Now, as far as fruits and vegetables, they sell microdine, DYN, micro and DYN. It's iodine is basically what it is. You soak your vegetables and you soak your fruits in the iodine, and that's supposed to kill the bacteria. And we've been very lucky. We go to the market, but when we bring back all the vegetables and fruits, we soak it in the iodine, the microdine, and they sell it at the grocery store. You can do that with local grocery. We have found places like the local grocery stores, like the chain grocery stores, are okay. You just wash it with normal water or whatever, but we still disinfect it with microdine. It's iodine. And actually, when I was assigned to Brazil and I had to go to the State Department briefings, iodine was one of the suggestions for soaking the food. So those are the two things that you want to do. We take the preventative parasitic medication. It's like I said, we do it every 6 months. I think it's supposed to last you a year. And then we also do the, like I was saying, the iodine for fruits and vegetables. Those are the things that you need to be careful of. The other thing you need to be very careful of, cheeses, like artisanal cheeses, those types of things. You got to remember they're made with milk, like real milk, not pasteurized milk. They're made with milk. A lot of times if you go to the marketplaces, they make them, or they'll make certain food with the eggs, the fresh eggs from the chicken. I mean, literally which is great and it's healthy, but it may have bacteria that your stomach is not used to. And usually you'll get sick for 24 hours or 48 hours. The best thing to do is if you get sick, usually go to a doctor and they'll usually prescribe something for your vomiting and diarrhea and that type of thing. So, given the questionable legality of the orders, any idea why ICE agents aren't refusing the orders? Well, Jesse, I can't tell you why. Probably more just like Republicans aren't fighting the current administration, even though they think that, like this last budget they passed, a good majority of Republicans didn't like the budget, but a lot of them were scared of losing their jobs. And probably human nature is human nature is I don't want to lose my job. I mean, what am I going to do? That's the only thing I can think of. And here's the problem too, is a lot of this lawlessness has been, I'm not saying, but the Supreme Court has kind of given permission on certain issues. And so maybe they're thinking we're not gonna face any consequences because no consequences have come. So, and the problem is when the consequences come, it's gonna be something bad. Okay, cheese, eggs. I ate eggs in restaurants every day. Yeah, you're going to be fine in restaurants because usually they have regular suppliers. They don't get the eggs from when I'm talking about eggs and cheese, I'm talking about from the market, like a farmer's market, where it's handmade cheese. You said you got sick when you got back. Then it probably was something right before you came back. Took a week to give anything else to stay away from in restaurants. In restaurants, one thing we don't eat, and I'm going to tell you right now, is lettuce, tomato. A lot of the vegetables, yes, they get them from Maine. But the thing with restaurants, and actually I think we're kind of that way even in the United States, some restaurants just don't they're very quick in washing stuff, even though they might get supplied from a better supply source. The other thing too is that vegetables and fruits and stuff like that, you're pretty safe. Once you get used to it, Jesse, like let's say you go to Yaquihik and you live there for a couple of months and you've eaten some fruit, it's settled in your stomach, and all the different local foods have settled in your stomach, you shouldn't have any problems. The problem that a lot of people, they used to call it Montezuma's revenge, when people used to come here to Mexico, eat, and get super sick. And what Montezuma's revenge is basically a bacteria that gets introduced into your body that your body's not used to, doesn't know how to fight, and then you get sick. Okay, and we scientifically, E. coli is everywhere. There are bacteria that go into your stomach, and the E. coli here in San Miguel de Allende is even different than the E. coli in Oaxaca. We have to even be careful when we travel to other parts of Mexico. Now, the United States, you don't see that a lot because everything's processed. So your body is used to eating processed foods. And most processed foods don't have a lot of bacteria because it's been eliminated in the process. Loxel, yes. Yes, Loxel, Loxcel. That's the anti-parasitic medication. Anna, the last I heard is that Cancun laxed off on the iPad thing. And they were the one that started the whole thing, actually. So last I heard, Cancun is not being so strict anymore. But what I have heard is other airports are still continuing with that iPad thing as a computing device. But one thing that I have advised, Anna, on this, for example, when I go back alone. If I'm traveling with my wife and I have an iPad and I have a computer, if you're traveling in a group, like with your spouse, with your kids, you're actually in a group, the allowances are, for example, what I mean by the allowances, okay, one portable computing device. So let's say you have an iPad and a computer. Okay, the iPad belongs to my wife, and I have the computer. So if you're Anna, if you're traveling with somebody, now I do know someone basically made a comment. Yeah, but both of us work, and both of us have laptops, and both of us has iPads. Actually, both of us have 2 laptops. Then you might be out of luck. I'll give an example. I had a friend that was going to bring in some recording equipment. It was $800, but it was in a Pelican case. And he says, "Hey, man, is there any exemptions for bringing in like recording equipment for personal use?" I'm like, "Dude, you're gonna get nailed at customs. First of all, because you're gonna put it through the X-ray machine, especially in Mexico City, they put everything. And the second thing, you have it in a Pelican case, and the Pelican case is gonna say, 'I have electronic equipment' written all over the Pelican case." And he said, I said, how much is that equipment worth? He said $800. And he was traveling with his wife. Okay, I said, not a problem. You're traveling with your wife. Both of you get $500 allowance. Make sure you have a receipt for the recording equipment, because he had just bought it. Make sure you have a receipt for the recording equipment. The minute they sell you, "Hey, what's this?" Show them the receipt. "That's my wife. We're traveling in a group. I get $1,000, and this is only $800. And what happened? Exactly what I said. Of course, he got stopped, and he basically said, "Here you go. I'm traveling." So you can actually combine your allowance. If on a land border, if you're traveling in a car, everybody over 18 gets $300 allowance. So you get a $300 allowance. So let's say you have 3 people over 18 in the car. That means you can bring in $900 worth of stuff. So if that makes sense. Oh, you need your own laptop and tablet, and your husband needs his own tablet. Yeah, I don't think you're going to have an issue on it. From what I understand, they laid off. Actually, Cancun actually said no more on that. Okay, I'm moving to Ajijic in January. Been asking lots of people what to bring and what to get down there. What are your thoughts on what to bring and what to get rid of and get going? What I'll tell you what, Jesse, we made a mistake. Hold on just one second. I have to put it on mute when I get a drink here because you can hear me drinking. It makes weird sounds. We brought all our furniture thinking it was going to fit in our house, and it didn't. We ended up having to get rid of it. We ended up having to buy the only thing, if you're going to bring furniture, and this is up to you because you can still buy beds here in Mexico. We were able to bring we brought our king size bed. The beds in Mexico, the king size beds in Mexico, and I have an issue because I'm taller, I'm 6 feet 2 inches, are shorter in length than the king size bed is in the United States. So we were fortunate that we at least kept our beds. What I would bring, I would bring as little as possible. Thanks, Ernie. Going soon. I'll report back. Yes. Awesome. And also, Anna, if you do get any kind of, just tell them the laptops will work. Sometimes also that's another thing. If the laptops will work, they'll allow the extra laptop because they say personal computing device. Just say that I need the laptop to communicate with my work back home or something. Let's see here. And Blaine's got a good stuff, good advice, Jesse. Bring electronics. It's a lot more here than in the U.S. Computers, cell phones, stuff like that. Anything, your iPads, your computer, a laptop, all of that stuff, bring that with you. Bring your clothes, of course. Anything that you're gonna. And here's another piece of advice. Underwear, for whatever reason, you can get it here, the same brands, but it's very expensive. Stock up on underwear. We always stock up on socks and underwear. I mean, this sounds weird, but that is one thing we always do that. But I would just take the bare minimum. Oh, and here's the bestest. Sold everything, and we came with 6 suitcases, and if we needed something, we bought it out here. Yeah, exactly. Jesse, here's the thing on a 75-inch TV. Yes, it's a lot more expensive here, but here's the issue: if you have somebody, if you're going to put all your stuff, like if you have a moving service or somebody that's going to do the move for you, or you're going to do this menaje de casa where you can move all your stuff duty free. Usually there's services that'll do that. If you have a 75, like I have a 65-inch TV that I brought with the movers, which turned out really good, perfect. You're going to spend more on electronics. Even a 75-inch TV definitely is going to spend a lot more. But at the same time, how are you going to bring a 75-inch TV on the plane? And if you bring a 75-inch TV on the plane, you might end up paying more for it than what you would have paid here, because then they're going to say, that 75-inch TV, we're going to charge you taxes. So you might want to look into, and there are certain items that are charged duties as well as taxes. So you would have to pay them coming into the airport. Now, if you're going to use a moving service, sure, get that 75-inch TV. Now, I know Blaine just said that he bought one for $300. It was around $500 here, but it also depends which 75-inch TV. And some of them can run very expensive here, especially the LGs and everything else. I was able to get a LG when I was moving to Monterrey. We had to buy one, and we also brought a bunch of TVs from the U.S. But like I said, unless you're using a moving service, If you're just trying to bring this big 75-inch TV and check it in to luggage, by the time you end up paying the excess baggage fee and all of that stuff, if you're trying to ship it in, then you're going to have to pay duties and import taxes. So we'll see what happens. You will be in HUD during the next big YouTube meetup in February. I will be there. Hopefully Ernie will be there, and two and the besses, and of course Mark and Gina. Actually, Mark reached out to me, Tom. The dates unfortunately, the dates in February aren't going to work for me. I'm going to have to I won't be able to make it. We have a wedding. Those dates, I'm going to actually be in Cancun. And after that wedding, it's my wife's birthday, so we're going to stay in Cancun. So I'm not going to be able to make it. I haven't responded to Mark yet. I was in Monterrey over the weekend. I just got back. I had to go take care of we flew over there and flew back. And Mark got me on Friday, but we were so busy Saturday. And today I was resting, but I'm just about to reply to Mark that I'm not going to be able to make it. He was telling me that they were going to do something for the Super Bowl and that type of stuff. But unfortunately, I won't be able to make it, Tom. Yeah, totally agree with her. Not worth it unless, and like I said, if you're going to get a moving service, there's some moving services. I know Best Mexico Pet Movers will help you out in doing that stuff. There's a couple of moving services. I think Ajijic has a couple of moving services. There's a moving service called Zumalo that's based out of San Miguel, but they do it all over Mexico. If you want to move furniture and move your TVs and stuff like that, because you are allowed like one import duty free if you're a resident, then yeah, bring your TVs, but you might end up spending more if you're trying to bring stuff in. And what I've found, and I'll tell you right now, perfect example, certain things that I want to get in the United States. Now, I still buy my computers there or whatever, and I bring them back with me. But I have had instances where I want to buy a certain item, and even a friend of mine was like, "Hey, man, are you going to go to the U.S. Because I need to buy a monitor, a computer monitor, and I need to buy a computer monitor." And I said, "Well, you know what, dude? By the time you buy the computer monitor, if you go on to Amazon.com here and you pay the import duties and everything else, or the total price, by the time you bring it and pay the duty, it's going to come out the same. So sometimes you're better off just buying stuff here." All right, I'm at 1 hour and 30 minutes, so I guess I'm going to cut it here. We'll see you next week, and hopefully you got some use out of this live stream. And next week I think I might even go over the electronic court, what's going on, how this is supposed to be implemented. And thank you, everybody, for joining me this week on my live stream. And I hope that you got some useful information out of it. And we'll see you next week. And as I always say, the most important is stay safe. And even more important is stay informed. We'll see you soon. And good luck and goodbye.